Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of 9x90. Today, we have a very special guest with us. For those of you who do not know, we have Angella Goran. She is a neobanking fintech founder, but that's not all. For those of you who do not know her, she is a world record holding cyclist, social impact entrepreneur, and most recently, a neobanking founder. But my favorite thing is she's making her way into real estate, which we will touch on a little bit later today. She's biked 10,000 kilometers across Canada to raise millions for youth sports, launched TAPanGO Technologies to disrupt digital banking and loyalty ecosystems, and is now building a real estate fund focused on the rise of women's sports. Angella also created the Power Hour, a global fitness movement aiming for a Guinness World Record while funding youth wellness across physical, mental, nutritional, and financial pillars. Ladies and gents, we have a true Renaissance woman with us today.
Hi, good morning. Oh gosh, Addie, this is wonderful to be on your podcast here today, and for everybody that's tuning in, such a great pleasure. When I listen to my bio, I kind of go, wow. Quite the life. It's interesting in listening to all the other incredible interviews that this incredible podcast, if those that are listening have not, you have to go and check some of them out. It's a huge honor. Obviously, a background, I am from the Great White North for those that have ever traveled to Canada, although it is summer now, so it's nice to have the warm weather finally have arrived. But yeah, as mentioned, I kind of mix or blend both my past background as a professional athlete and my passion to disrupt and innovate in a space that I'm uber passionate about, which is really focused on the financial services space as being a fintech founder. And it's a ton of fun how I fell here. And I know we're going to get into some great Q&A, and I look forward to sharing more.
So you're building TAPanGO at the intersection of finance and wellness and community. How do you see loyalty programs evolving beyond points, especially in creating long-term behavioral change and impact?
Yeah, that's a great question. So TAPanGO Technologies, and I think for those that know a little bit of the story that are listening, and those that don't, my background as an athlete, coming from a single family household, really discovered the means of obviously financial barriers, right, to sport. That's kind of a planting the seed, the why. Obviously, there's a long range story to that, but you skip ahead to when I started TAPanGO back a decade ago. It really looked at the intersect of kind of, where does everybody spend their time and their money, right? Things that we always look for in life. And what I thought was really interesting is my former company that I founded was a social enterprise. And I came out of a government position, live in Ottawa, Ontario, Great White North, right? Right here in the federal capital, just like Washington, D.C. in the U.S. And what struck me when I worked on the Hill, is what we call it, was that we weren't teaching younger people the means or necessary means behind financial and wealth literacy. And I'll get to, why TAPanGO was born. And I think that's to get to your question, Addie, is realistically, it paved me to realize that there was a missing element within society where we are not ingraining education and knowledge to that next generation on where they could put finances and wealth. And what frustrated me was going back to when I was young and my family and my mother, being able to afford all these things that we love to do as a family and making those necessary means, which everybody does. So, when you look at banking today, you and I, and anybody that's listening here, we're just numbers, right? We go in, you got an account, you might have some savings, you might have some investments through the wealth management side, you might have a mortgage. Those are all resources and tools. And then over and above that, a bank facilitates other things that maybe a credit card, which is a separate entity. And altogether, it's an ecosystem. And what we've done over hundreds of years of banking is we've disabled the ability for somebody to truly understand what their day-to-day banking really is. And I started to break that down to make it really simple, to start to say, how can we truly authenticate who each one of us is that banks and offer them something of true royalty and loyalty, not just points. So it's not about getting the bang for your buck and another discount at your favorite retailer, which obviously we all love and we've grown to know over the last few decades. I wanted to strip that away and innovate and disrupt the space to go, you know what? The only reason I shop at this certain place is because I'm loyal to it. And that's a brand or something I like to consume, which is what I spend my money on. My money comes out of my bank account or from my credit card. When I'm transactioning, lots of people don't realize the cost to that small business. And that's what TAPanGO Technologies is innovating. It's really taking an environment that is decentralized in the payments method, and we're enabling that transaction between a brand that I'm loyal to as a consumer and where I'm transactioning with my bank or my credit card to allow that fund to flow right to that merchant, right back to me from the consumption side, lowering the cost for that brand to actually get me as a customer. So if you kind of look at the overall arching picture, TAPanGO can go into specific niches. I started where I'm passionate as an athlete in sports and brands. So ATHLETICA Rewards is the first flagship program we're setting up to launch in Q4. It's one of two that we've got, one that's in real estate. But the whole means is to really take that next layer down from day-to-day banking and truly authenticate who that end user is and where they're spending their money, and enable that cash rewards play back, which in technical terms, it's what that merchant's already spending to try to acquire them. Google ads, Facebook ads, which has no guarantee on actually acquiring the customer, which we all know right now based on data. So that's what we're simplifying it. Boom.
Very cool. Very cool. So your previous EdTech venture reached hundreds of high schools teaching financial literacy. What lessons from that project are you embedding into TAPanGO's design and its ATHLETICA Rewards loyalty program?
This is a great question paired with the last one, because it paves that story of what got me out of government, learning that the next generation needed those resources and tools around financial and wealth literacy. So Socks in the School was the former program, just so everybody knows, and the company was called SockJock. It reached 13,000 schools, which I'm very proud of. Today, still schools in Canada and the US are using that curriculum. I built it because all my family are educators. I'm kind of the black swan next to my uncle and my late grandfather that passed, who were the entrepreneurs. But SockJock was taking an everyday consumer item, right? Going back to question one, consumer item where people are spending money and time. Guess what parents spend a lot of money on for kids? Socks and underwear. It wasn't an easy hard sell. It wasn't a chocolate bar. It wasn't an almond. It wasn't crap candy food to put in our body. And the fun play on words being an athlete was, you wear socks to do sports. Socks go on your feet. Where in your life are your feet taking you but on a journey towards great things? So the students actually learned, and honestly, Addie, to answer your question on that, I learned just as much because it was the first time I ventured into entrepreneurship and had, at the height, 13,000 e-commerce stores, which were 13,000 high schools operating a small business that was selling socks for a purpose. And the purpose was that the youth in the schools would actually vote on where the funding from the sock sales went back to causes they cared about in community, arts, sports, and academics. So for those that speak Spanish, mi casa, su casa, we're all under the same roof. We all belong, and we're here to invest and donate into causes we care about. And that really paved the way forward for TAPanGO. So when you think about, I learned behind the scenes, I'm going to say it, I got really pissed off because at 2013, when I saw that we were giving money to the banks and the credit card and the transaction fees, let's call it the hidden fees in the banking world, the same amount that we were also allocating to the youth that were doing so much work during the school year, the causes they cared about, I had a question to ask the banks. Where and why am I giving this much money when the youth, as far as I'm concerned, are doing all the work? So there you go. TAPanGO was born, and you can start to see why I really wanted to truly authenticate who that end user was and pay back that end user for the hard work that they were doing and the loyalty they had to that brand. Simple as that.
Oh, wow. Very cool. So
Thanks.
You raised an oversubscribed seed round for TAPanGO. What unique value did investors see in your vision for embedded finance and health-focused loyalty?
Yeah, so I guess for the oversubscription with TAPanGO, we were very fortunate at this stage. All of my investors have been angels and our family offices. I really went the venture route, not going VC, which typically is not really early stage or seed, which is typical for those that are listening and maybe thinking about going into raising a seed round or a Series A. That's where you start to get into the VC round if you need. I'm never going to go that way, hopefully, because I feel super authentic to the strategic players. For us, I think the value coming out in 2019 was when TAPanGO really made its way into what I would say its early stage round. And then we, of course, all faced the pandemic. We were very fortunate. Fintech was at a hype. If you go back to 2019 to 2021, You saw a lot of banking as a service software companies launch. You saw a lot of cryptocurrency. Obviously, I get asked all the time if we've got any form of crypto and or blockchain, and we could talk to that later. But I think for us, it was the interest from angels. We had a great simple valuation. We were innovating on something that we promised was going to take us a little bit of time because I really truly wanted to get a patent lined up. So now we've got that patent pending in place. And here we are with this oversubscribed round from the fund of funds. However, we've been able to roll, and we're waiting because it's a strategic play coming in later this year. So what we've been doing is we've got a special purpose vehicle now that family offices, particularly again, that are strategic, can come in to make an investment in TAPanGO. So it's kind of nice to be in the driver's seat. I really truly want to work with the right people that want to invest in what we're doing to make it move forward. So hopefully that answers that.
Yeah. So before all of this, you were an elite athlete. How have your experiences in rowing, triathlon, cycling shaped your mindset and strategy as a founder of TAPanGO? So sorry. Everyone in the audience is going to laugh because I always say that the best athletes or the best founders were athletes first, because you need the athlete's mindset of self-discipline and the hippocampus development of an athlete to be a good founder. But so they've all heard my lectures on this over hundreds of hours. But go ahead and answer from your side.
Well, I can keep it short and sweet because I know your background as an incredible athlete yourself, Addie. So all that to be said, I think, you nailed it. The ingredients behind being a professional athlete, I always kind of say when you get to a world-class stage, it's very similar mindset to being a founder and entrepreneur. You've got grit, you've got resilience, you've got determination. I think the other thing that I add to the formula is you also have passion. Passion and purpose have definitely been, now that doesn't fit with everybody, but the more that I meet world-class athletes that have made it to that next level, they have a why, they have a reason why they're there, whether it's family, whether it's something that happened to them, we could call it trauma. But it really ties into that. But I think what's awesome is the fact that, you're born to learn about failure really young, because I failed a heck of a lot more than I've succeeded at this stage. And I totally know that, Addie, you're going to be agreeing with me on that one. Yeah. So I think that's it. It's the formula, right? It's like, look, I got a good formula, and it's so similar in the sense of like, look, I got a goal. I want to get the gold medal. I'm going to drive home. I know how to work with a team, which also sports does a lot. You've got to work with coaches. You've got to be able to listen. You've got to be able to learn. You've got to be able to pivot. You're going to have hard freaking days out there. It's the same, right? Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I have a friend, she's wanting to get into PR and being a publicist. And she was like, your production team has everything down pat. I was like, get your first 100 hours in. She was like, what? She's like, I'm not good at this. I was like, you're not born being great at anything. Like, you have to get 100 hours of training in before you can say, okay, I'm going to fine tune my step or this or that or the other thing. But yeah, that's the athlete thing. You're like, when you're going to launch something, you're like, I'm going to fail for the first 100 hours, and I'm going to fail fast to get through those 100 hours so that I can actually get to performance mode.
So true. Well said.
You're building a real estate fund centered on women's sports leagues. Can you walk us through how integrating stadiums, urban agriculture, affordable housing, and a decentralized fintech platform creates social and financial ROI?
Oh gosh, this is a topic that could go on, Addie. This is a great question. I feel like we're going to have to do a panel on this. If you take everything that we've been talking about so far, between background as an athlete, and then you take a fintech that's disrupting in such a particular space, right? And then for myself, and I for sure know the audience that's listening, and if you don't know this, the rise of women's sports is here, right? We're seeing it. If you're a family office that hasn't been investing, or investor that's out there, this is it's got a return that you have to be able to understand. And the one major space is obviously where next are women's sports going. And one of the things that I've looked at with my network is we're going to need to have more sports performance centers. We're going to have more develop around that. You've got the fandom, and then you've really got to take that almost like a Web3 approach and a decentralized approach to the physical environment that's being built in and around. And that's what got me really excited is I, took a step back from my company TAPanGO Technologies because of course I'm excited about being able to integrate, similar to some of the stadiums we're seeing where they're what we call doing a closed loop model where that stadium, everything from payments, merchandise inside is gamified from the moment you as a fan step into that stadium, but that's all encompassed. Imagine doing that, but in a micro ecosystem where there's a community. So you've got condos, grocery stores, restaurants, everything, even outside of the stadium that's involving that. And that's where being somebody, again, with passion and purpose, I see a big change in what we're doing right now to make affordable housing, affordable living for the next generation. I think there's obviously health and wellness. We're looking at the offensive side of how we can take care of each other. I'm really excited with the families and the groups that we're working with to build out this fund. There's been, without a doubt, a huge outreach. The minute I announced this is what we're going to be doing, the ability to already have portfolio inside that, and some of the families that are involved with the WNBA to the PWHL, for those that don't know, Women's Professional Basketball League and the Professional Women's Hockey League. We've got the draft actually coming up here in Ottawa, which is really exciting. There's just a lot to look forward to. And I think the fractional ownership, you've heard Mark Cuban lately talk about building out a team to fractionally go in and take small, minor, and minority stake. That's a smart move. We're looking to do the same thing. But the bigger piece is being a part of the real estate play that goes in and around, because a lot of these sports stadiums and environments for living around this, the structure and infrastructure needs to be built. Otherwise, how are you going to get people to your stadium and watch your game, right? So we need to encompass that. And then you look at the advertising means too. So very excited on this space.
This was not in the list of questions. Do you have siblings?
I have an older brother. Yeah. Teacher. All educators in my family.
And then you have children?
I do not have children. No, it's yeah.
So the reason I'm asking is because you're very passionate about building ecosystems that make, like, most single moms have to focus on either having a career and providing for their kids, or they're somehow able to structure their child support so that they can take care of their children and take care of their own health. And it seems like with this ecosystem, you're building based on things from your childhood that you wished existed, that you're making the struggles from your childhood non-existent for the next generation.
That's a great way to put it. I'd absolutely say that's a great formula right there. And the support engine as well from a lot of single families and single people that I've met. I think also the environment of families that want to, in their philanthropic arm, which we see a lot of investors and FOs wanting to get involved with. I think too, it's just that harmonious way. I call it the European way of living. In North America, it's very different. In Canada and the US, we've become so individualistic. And I think now we're starting to see what does it look like in 10, 20, 30 years. We're seeing the environmental changes if you want to look at impact. But if we can start to look at the grassroots of how can we make, food security and housing security as a non-threatening and a financial access point for all, we're going to have healthier homes. We're going to have healthier futures, right? So you're totally right, Addie. I'm pretty sure from learning from experience and coming up in a single family home and knowing my mom did everything, and she's very high education. She went on to be a director and an outstanding dean at a university over in the Emirates before she retired. So I grew up with a very powerhouse driven woman in my life, and my grandma was the same. So I think that gave me a lot of those grassroots. But yeah, it's exciting to be able to take a lot of that and plant the seed. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Because as an investor, I'm always, on the real estate side, I'm always looking like, what is their drive and what is their why? Because you see a lot of people pitch deals that they're not passionate about, and it wasn't baked into their neurobiology from an early age. So I'm skeptical that it will work out. But clearly, this has serious fingerprints of whatever you saw that you felt the planet lacked growing up, you're going to see it to fruition.
Yeah, that's definitely, this has got a long-term, I look at look, I have no problem sharing my age at 46 years old. I feel at this stage, I just feel so grateful for the networks and the people that I've been surrounded by. And I think it's true of all all of us, as we age, we kind of look at life in a pathway or a journey. And if you don't, definitely try to figure that out. But the real estate side, I look at this as not, what is the IRR, the ROI of going into this? It's actually about building an ecosystem in an environment where the economy thrives, right? And right now we're seeing so much angst against how do we work together. And I think obviously right now with governments around the world, it's present. I don't need to go through it. Just turn on whatever news channel you want. So for me, I'm more about, and the team that I'm building, we're about building like a safe place, but also a place that really prospers on knowledge, offers education, offers a vehicle for the next generation to come in and see that there is opportunity. And that's kind of a lifelong, for me, I feel it's a responsibility. I always look at it, people go, oh, you don't have children, but I feel like there's days I have like thousands of them after socks in the school. So, and it's fantastic.
I have to tell you, so my mother and I used to have like a hard relationship throughout much of my youth, because I look a lot like my dad, and so when they were fighting, it was whatever. And so when I first started breaking global records, people were like, what's your inspiration? And it was like, one day I'm going to earn my way to be on this, sitting at the same table as powerful women who never had children, and then I will find a mother. So, and one of my mentors right now, she's the most powerful woman in the nonprofit world. She,
wow.
She's the actual president of Rotary International. And
one of my friends, I was a Rotary student. There you go.
Yeah. One of my friends who like heard me say that in like, I think it was college or business school. They saw Stephanie's name on the back of the book, and they were like, you made it. Like, you broke enough records to get a mother who never had kids. So I wasn't asking that question to try to like jab at you not having children, because I think some of my best female mentors who I view as second and third mothers, they never had children. I was just trying to figure out what your drive was.
My drive.
Yeah, this ecosystem. I also cannot believe you're 46, because I thought you were in your late 20s at the moment.
I'll take it. I was drinking lots of water, laughing. Look, I always kind of say it's laugh lots, live life, have lots of good friends that you truly do love. And I live that way. Like I am totally a purpose. Like I'm the person, like, look, sock jock. And I think now as a founder, and you might, it sounds like you've had such a great career as well. And I can't wait to share more stories, but I should have started Sock Jock when I was uber successful, is the kind of laughing joke amongst my mentors, because it really was a giving company. Like, it wasn't a for-profit. It was 100% social enterprise. Any ounce of money I gave, I was like, oh my God, take the extra, like, please. Because I just saw how hard the kids worked. And I think for me, like, that for sure has been ingrained, because that came from me. Like, if it wasn't for sponsors, I was an NIL athlete back in 1990. If it wasn't for the coffee shop down the street that helped me get to where I was, and I used myself as a good marketeer, I never would have made it to the stage I could have, I guess, with athletics, because my mom couldn't have afforded that. Same thing, I went to a private school in my grade 12 year, and Brentwood was an amazing platform, but same thing, if it wasn't for academic scholarships and sports scholarships, would that opportunity have been presented to me? And I'm grateful that I have that gift, and I want to be able to use that to be able to inspire others, that there's people that truly just do care about people. That's me.
And now I'm understanding you and your vision way more. 'Cause originally I was like, an athlete, finance, real estate. Something's going to blow up here. But no, you're looking at what people who see something missing from the world, and they have a clear vision for how it can be fixed and brought to life, are so much more efficient at seeing things done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. I very much agree.
I had to fire a chief investment officer from a company yesterday. Okay. And before I did, so many investors and other decision makers and advisors told me, they were like, he's not hungry enough for this. He's not going to see it through to fruition. So that's why I'm sorry to drill down on this. I know investors are tuning into this, so they're going to ask the same thing. That's why I was trying to drill down, like, what is your why? Like, what is making you hungry to do this? So, okay, now we have the whole picture, this whole ecosystem that you're building. It's a vision that you've been putting the different pieces in. I think all of us, anyone who's been in real estate for more than a decade or two, can see how it's going to be profitable. And now that we understand your level of commitment based on everything that happened in the past, it's an obvious win.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it. I think when you look at obviously the WNBA, our first team, the Tempo coming into Toronto, having the right access point to the Tatenbaum family, like Larry and his team, shout out, because without their investment in the sport community, Toronto would definitely not have our incredible Raptors, our Blue Jays, the Maple Leafs that make up so much. But now an incredible, you've got the Professional Women's Hockey League there, and now you've got the WNBA coming in with its first team ever in Canada. And I think we're going to start to see that as a rise, and having the opportunity to project a proposal to build Tempo Town, which is what we're right now raising the majority of the first fund for, and having that in, and being one of the first women in a sports fund in Canada is huge. So that is one of the things I can say. Like I'm one of the first ones to go out and try to build a massive sports fund, very similar to Muse Capital. Shout out to Assie and her team of what they're doing to shape women's sports. I know their most recent investment was in one of the F1 teams, and of course, I think the Sail GP that came out, the Italia team. And I think there's a huge movement happening. And I want to be on that side where one can come in and be that real estate play that can go in and start to change the environment inside and around for people to able to do that. The other thing too is make the sport affordable for people to see. The thing I hate most, Addie, about, and I'll say this about the NHL and the NFL, as much as I love the sports and the leagues and teams, families can't take their kids to those games because it costs too much. Right? So how do we get kids in play, and how do we get that out there? And I think if you build an ecosystem, we can make it possible. So
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Wow, very cool.
Thank you.
So we have two final questions before you go. One is, what are some tools and tactics that you use to manage your time and team effectively?
Great question, and one that's good for everybody, because I think everybody's got tools and tactics. I'd be curious on what yours are. So for myself, definitely background as an athlete. Yeah, especially rowing Canada. You had to be up early. I had full-time studies. So early on in my life, it was all about time management. If you wanted to succeed, you had to show up. I think that's the biggest thing. And for me to show up, I had to be able to see my schedule. So for myself, from early days, being able to see it, I'm a visualist. So sticky notes were my life. Back in the day, they still are. Lots of paper all over my desk. If you were to see it, if you were to see my desk right now, I always try to clean it. It looks horrible, but I know where everything is. So that's what matters, right? Yeah. And then when I moved into my university and into my career mode, like my short little stint in government, and worked up on the Hill for a federal minister as an EA, my job was to manage his calendar, to manage where he was traveling and flying from. So learning the depths of like a very senior level from the moment he woke up to the moment he went to bed, I had to manage that, right? So for me, it was a real great lesson to take those same tactics I had and apply them to myself as a founder. And same thing with my team. I think we have a very open culture. Even before the pandemic, everybody worked remote. Although we got together for core group meetings as executives, I feel life again is worth living for, and a job is a job. And the best part is the team that I've had with me, although small, they've been with me for pretty much since day one. And I have now people that are like yourself, Addie. I have people that are senior. One's actually just flown in for Innovation Week to be interviewed for the first time on a panel. And she was my first mentor in my first company. And now her and I are going to be setting par, and she's going to be coming on board with the proposal that you've been hearing about with the Women in Sports Real Estate Fund. So full circle, 20 years later, now, people coming back. And I think it's about building that culture and believing they can set their own time and they show up. So yeah, we've got a really good structure in place for TAPanGO at this stage.
On my side, it's very, very, very strong boundaries.
That's
people would love to push you, especially if I don't know if you have it as a blonde female. People will try to push me all over the place, and I call them out on it immediately, like a very New York Jew with that. Like, don't.
It's global. It's a global thing. I love it, and it's funny because I've tried going back to my dark roots. Literally, if people get it, like blonde is not my natural color, but it has been for like 20 plus years. So I always get a kick out of saying my darker roots. But that being said, yeah, I think it's, you just got to be that part, be on task. And I agree with you, setting those boundaries. I think the biggest thing is time. I find the hardest thing as a founder is setting those limits. Like I love what I do. And I think that's what, when I say to anybody, look, if a job was what I love to do, I would be committed to it. But I know I'm a full bred entrepreneur, because it could be 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm still alert and awake like I was at 10 o'clock in the morning, because I'm working on something that I'm so uber passionate about. So I think if you find something like that in your life, right, stick to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Last question. What is the best way for investors to get in touch with you? They see the vision, they like your why, they understand that you have the grit to see this through, you have the team in place. How can they jump in?
Yeah, so I'm super approachable, which is great, as is my team. I always make sure, just in case, because obviously one does do travel, which I think most people expect. But I can be reached by email. I'm really good at text. I always kind of say to people, look, emails get so bombarded for investors or people that want to be strategic. And Addie, I have no problem. You're a good barrier. You know your network. So by all means, if people reach out directly to yourself through this network and say, hey, how do I contact Angela? If you feel they're a good person, you can just do a direct connect. But for sure, Angela, my name is with 2 L's. So Angela at TAPanGO, TAPanGO.com. And I'll share that obviously in the notes that can go along. And then Jim Anderson, he's my CFO. He's been with me on my team for 6+ years. He's always kind of my secondary if I'm ever out of office, which doesn't often happen. It's more if I'm out of office for the day because I'm at an event or I'm speaking. So yeah, there you have it.
All right. Well, ladies and gents, thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this. It was total gold. Thank you, Princess, for introducing us and insisting that she had to come on the show. You were very persistent.
Thank you, Princess. Yes, persistent.
I was not going to take no for an answer. You were getting a slot in the production schedule. Yeah, so I wish we could all have someone like Princess in our corner.
Oh my gosh. Well, she's both in ours. And yes, the shout out to Princess for that. She is an incredible person and a teammate. So true and true.
Total force. Thank you all for tuning in. Take care. We'll see you back online.
Thanks.